Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Hey, have you ever wondered how pointed pen calligraphy works? Or maybe you're getting married soon and you want to address your envelopes all pretty. Whatever it might be, you've come to the right videos. Actually, we're coming out with a 3-part series, so make sure you watch the other videos coming out after this. But we're coming out with a 3-part series all on the techniques you should know as a beginner, starting with pointed pen calligraphy. I have been teaching pointed pen calligraphy for over 6 years now, and it's something that I love to teach. It's a really fun medium, whether you're addressing envelopes or you're scanning and digitizing your calligraphy for paper products or artwork that you're licensing, planners, whatever it might be. So before I actually show you some words and all that fun stuff, I'm also going to be coming out with a video on how to address envelopes. But before we get into all that fun stuff, we got to talk about the basics. So let's get started. All right, so I have linked below a free modern calligraphy ebook that I developed for all of my previous calligraphy classes. I'm giving it to you for free, free 90 freaking 9. These were, I mean, it's huge. It's like over 30 pages, and people used to pay for these things, and now I'm just giving it out giving it out for free because I'm so nice. So make sure you click that link and you download this free ebook, print it out on your home printer situation, and flip through it with me. We're going to be walking through it in these next 3 videos and then also in future videos to come. So print it out. But I'm going to turn to the first page where it says Tools of the Trade. I actually updated this booklet, so it's going to look a little bit different. The one you print out is going to be the updated version. This is an older version that I'm holding and showing. I'm just lazy and I'm not printing it out. So you're seeing the older version. But what we're going to talk about today in this first video is the first technique that you must know in order to get skilled at pointed pen calligraphy. So I teach modern calligraphy. I do not teach copperplate or Spencerian. I know it, kind of. I'm not very good at it. It's not my skill set. I teach modern calligraphy because that's what I did for 6+ years. I did wedding invitations, owned a stationery business for tons of years. So I'm going to be teaching you in just like bleh, all the stuff I know about calligraphy. So let's get started. I'm going to open up my ink jar, and if you don't know, oh, this is really dried up and gone. I need a new ink. Oh, duh. Got it. If you don't know what supplies to use, in this book I have a list of supplies, but I also have a supplies video, which we'll link in the description below. One sec. We'll link in the description below. And we'll link all of the supplies I use below as well. So you can go directly to them, buy them off Amazon, and get ready to get your fingers inky. Okay? All right, so check out the supplies video before you get started. Okay, so the very first technique that you must know before you get started with pointed pen calligraphy is how to hold your pen. So if you are holding your pen incorrectly, it will let you know. If you hear this nasty scratch sound that I'm about to show you, one second. If you hear this nasty scratch sound that I'm about to show you, like that, that means you're not holding your pen correctly. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But basically with pointed pen calligraphy, you are working with a metal nib. So if the angle is too steep, or either on its side or it's too steep vertically like this, it's going to cut and scratch the paper, and it's going to make a noise, but it's also going to damage your nib. So basically if you watch the supply video where I talk about the nib, inside that supply video, you'll notice that there's different parts of the nib that separate when you're putting pressure on the nib. And when those 2 tines separate, or those 2 sides of the slit separate on the nib, and they're not supposed to, so on an up or a cross stroke, when they're supposed to say tight and closed, it's going to damage the nib. So you do have to be really careful with how you hold your pen. A lot of beginners will damage their first nib or two. So if this is you, beginner, maybe try purchasing 2 or 3 nibs before you get started, just in case you do damage your nib and it's not working for you. Because a lot of people, if they do damage your nib, a tall tale sign is you dip your pen and you go to write, and right after you dip your pen in the ink, it won't write anything. No ink will come out. That means either there's a thread of paper caught in there, or you just abused your nib so much that it's refusing to work for you. So you need a new nib. So there you have that long spiel. Let's get back to it. The first tip for technique, developing technique for pointed pen calligraphy, is how to hold your pen. You want to hold your pen so that your nib is pointed at either a 35-degree angle or anywhere between a 35-degree angle and 0. So what I mean is, if you look at your nib, the vent hole is pointing straight up. That means that it's completely parallel to the paper. So if your vent hole is pointed totally straight up, your nib is parallel or at 0 degrees to the paper. If it's at 35 degrees, then the right side of the nib is just rotated up ever so slightly. So if you're looking at your vent hole is rotated up on the right, not on the left, on the right. So same thing for left-handed people. You're gripping it in the same spot, which on this straight pen holder, there's a little dip grip here situation. That, my friends, is where you grab the pen, grip the pen. Left-handed or right-handed, you will grip it right there, grip it, and that's how you'll hold the pen forever. Once you've got your grip good, you don't want to be too high up, gripping the pen too high up, because you're going to be too far away, and putting pressure this far away from your nib could snap your nib in half. So choke up a little bit higher on your pen holder in that grip area. And then you want to make sure, like I said, that your nib is either completely flat or parallel to the paper, or just slightly up on the right side. So you want to make sure that your nib is either flat or same angle as the paper, parallel to the paper, or the right side of your nib is just up slightly. You don't want it up too high, because then you're going to hear that nasty scratch. So lower the angle, and this amount of scratch is good. You don't want that, because then you'll see the two sides of the slit separate when they're not supposed to, and it'll drag and cut the paper. So you want to be super, super light and just have a little bit of an angle up on the right side. Okay, and then along with that, and how to hold your pen, you want to make sure that you're holding your pen vertically so that it's also about 30 to 45 degrees away from the paper. So another thing to be aware of as a beginner, when you're holding a ballpoint pen or a pencil, a lot of people grip that thing super hard, and that grip will push the pen holder basically straight up and down. And if you do that, that is also going to cut and scratch the paper, because you're putting the nib on its tippiest point, and that thing's really sharp. So make sure it's leaning back, and like I said, if my hand were the table and the paper was flat, you'd be about 35 to 45 degrees away from the paper with your pen holder. So not up here like this, but like this. So much nicer, way prettier. Okay, and then last little bit about how to hold your pen. A lot of people, like myself, when I'm writing notes in class, which I'm doing all the time now, now that I'm no longer in school, or just writing something down or whatever, you'll swing your elbow out way out here like this and write completely sideways. That's fine if that's comfortable for you. Just make sure you're not scratching the paper like that. I don't know where this accent's coming from. Move the paper so that your pen holder is directly beneath every letter form or shape that you're writing. So you're not on the side of the shape writing it, but you're below it writing it. This will make more sense once we actually start writing. So to practice that first technique, and that's the only technique we're going to cover in this video, to practice that, we are going to do some simple strokes. All right, so we're gonna dip our pen in our ink, and in order to get fully coated with ink, you wanna make sure that your nib goes all the way down. So you wanna make sure that your vent hole, the base of your nib, etc., they're all coated with ink, because if you're just dipping a little bit of the tip in ink, you're gonna have to dip very frequently. So make sure you dip it all the way down. And then swipe the excess ink. As you can see, there's some like droplets coming off. If I just go like that, that's way too much ink. You're just gonna get a blob of messy ink on your paper. So make sure you swipe. I just do the back side and the front side a couple of times. And you're ready to write. So let's remember that technique, how to hold your pen. So we have our hand or our fingers in the gripping area. You want to make sure to have a light grip too. Don't like clench it like you're about to chuck a rock at someone. So have a light grip. This is delicate. This is a thing of ladies. Not true. There's very talented men who do calligraphy. Excuse me. My ADD is going off tonight.
Raging right now.
What was I talking about? Okay, so you have ink on your pen and you want to remember the first technique, which is how to hold your pen. Have a light grip. Grip it in that dip. Make sure the angle of your nib is either 0 degrees or up on the right at 35-ish degrees, okay? So just a slight angle. And then your pen holder is directly over your arm and just, 35 to 45 degrees away from the paper. Nothing crazy. All right, so what I'm gonna do to practice, and you can do this too if you've printed out the guide that I have for you linked below, is you can go to the strokes page where there are simple slant guides with upstrokes or hairlines marked, and we're just gonna write some hairlines and get used to this and develop muscle memory, because that's what it's all about. Anything that you're learning that's new, you're gonna have to develop that muscle memory so you really grasp that technique. Your technique's gonna suck at first, just trust me. If you hear a bunch of scratchy scratch, that means your technique is off. So start the video over and see what I'm talking about and really see it. Okay, so I have ink on my nib. I just want to do this a few times so you guys can really see what I'm talking about when it comes to holding your pen. So I have a nice light grip. I have my pen holder away from the paper about 45 degrees. And I'm also making sure that my nib isn't slanted too much. So if it's like this, again, it's gonna scratch a ton and cut the paper. So make sure that it's either completely flat or just up a little bit on the right side. So I'm just creating these hairlines. You, again, download and print this guide so you can follow along by tracing with your layout bond paper or tracing paper. And with these hairlines or upstrokes, anything that's going in an up or a cross motion, you want to make sure that you're barely touching the paper. So you're just kind of gliding up the paper, guiding your pen holder with your arm. Because if you're pushing with your fingers on these up or across strokes, you're just going to slice the paper. So you're barely making any scratch sound as you go up. Your lines will be a little bit shaky. That is just the nature of working with a pointed pen and doing this by hand. This is not lettering on your iPad or on your computer in a design program. This is done by hand. So you're just practicing rows of these upstrokes over and over again. If you've had a lot of coffee, then you will have probably shakier lines than others. So lay off the coffee a little bit. But just remember that the shakier your strokes are, the more you need to focus and put the weight on your actual forearm as you're writing instead of your fingers. So when you start to run out of ink is when you will dip your pen. With hairlines, you don't run out as quickly as you would with downstrokes or wide lines, which I'll show you in the next video. So this may seem very repetitive, maybe seem boring, but this is developing that muscle memory. The shakier your lines are, the more you need to practice this, because writing with your arm and making sure you have a good grip on your pen is so crucial in order to have longevity with your nibs, and then also to smooth out your lines and your curves. So I'm just doing a couple more rows of these hairlines. They're at a 45-degree slant, and I'm just leading from my elbow and guiding my forearm up the paper instead of flicking my fingers like this up the paper, because that's just going to turn the nib up like this and slice the paper. So make sure you're keeping that angle steady by moving your arm up the paper versus flicking like that. Okay, so just practice this a few more times. Keep practicing it actually. It's so helpful to do this before you jump into something like letters. Again, it might seem repetitive and boring, but we're just developing that muscle memory, and like anything else, that helps you progress. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, we're going to be doing the next two techniques so that you can be on your way to writing letters and pretty words. Don't get too excited. The techniques are super, super important. We should have a full sheet of hairlines. So beautiful, hanging up in your home. But join me in the next video. I am going to be talking about the next technique, which is super important for you to get those nice, thick, beautiful downstrokes. Those are the fun ones. So stay tuned for that one. Also, before I say toodles, make sure you, if you haven't already, make sure you download that free ebook on modern calligraphy that I've developed for you, because it is gold. It is a gold mine. And print it out, work through these videos with it, print it out so you can trace over it like I just did in this video. So stay tuned for the next one. Thank you for watching.